We will continue from where we left off 2 weeks ago. Like last week, I wasn't feeling too well, so I didn't show up. This week, inshallah, we continue from where we left off. And we had stopped somewhere in the midst of the Battle of Khaibar, which we'll continue today, inshallah. Maybe talk a little bit about the period right before Fatah Mecca, or the conquest of Mecca. So what year are we roughly here in the Battle of Khaibar? Anyone have a number? What year are we, roughly? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, so around year 7. Jazakallah khair. So this is around the year 7 of his hijrah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Always remember that when you give a year of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, you have to figure out whether it's a year of his prophecy, meaning before hijrah, or it's a year after his hijrah, alayhi salatu wasalam, because they obviously are very different. So right after the battle, right after the treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah, which we spent a sizable amount of time talking about, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam did a number of things. One of the things he did is that he started corresponding with kings, the kings within the land, and that resulted in the Battle of Mu'tah, because one of the leaders, or the king of Al-Ghasasina, murdered Al-Harith bin Umayr al-Azdi radiallahu anhu, and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam moved an army for him radiallahu anhu, which is the Battle of Mu'tah we talked about a few weeks ago. Once he was done doing that, alayhi salatu wasalam, and again, if you study Seerah, you may be told, or you may learn that some scholars think Khaibar happened before Mu'tah, and that's fine. It's just there's sometimes lack of clarity in terms of when things happen. It's not a problem. I think it happened after, but that's all right. You're looking at Khaibar. The reason the Prophet ﷺ did that is because Khaibar was becoming an area of conspiracy again. Meaning, the Prophet ﷺ was trying to lessen the amount of the possibility for war. After signing the treaty with Quraysh, that was a big one, because once he signed the treaty with Quraysh ﷺ, now the majority of Arabia was no longer at war with him. But Khaibar was different. Khaibar didn't follow the rule of Quraysh. They didn't care for Quraysh at all. And the conspiracies were still occurring there. So he didn't want ﷺ to close it from one spot and have it open up from another one. So he negotiated with Khaibar a couple of times to figure out a treaty, and they basically did not respond. They didn't want to do it. And ﷺ's intelligence group were bringing back the information of the correspondence that Khaibar was having with different tribes outside of the small area within where the Treaty of Hudaybiyah actually occurred, corresponding with them to prepare for another attack. So the Prophet ﷺ wasn't going to wait for that. He's not going to wait until they do it again. Medina had already been quite used, let's say, years of war. Whenever a community goes through war for a long time, they become very tired. And the Prophet ﷺ he didn't want any more bloodshed. He wanted to stop it. So he decided that the only way to do this is to actually march to Khaibar before they actually gather any more forces, or turn this into something bigger than it actually is, and force their hand to a treaty. He wanted them to put down their weapons, I mean, just to take away their arsenal, their artillery, and to force them to a treaty. How he was going to do this he was going to set a siege around the castles of Khaibar, which is easier said than done, because honestly, as I showed you some of the pictures, I'm not sure. I'm going to need someone to help me with this so it works. Fayed, Ahmed, can someone just, because it's not listening. Because when you take a look at some of these castles that were there, and it wasn't that far away from Medina. It's only 150 kilometers away. Mecca, by the way, was 400 kilometers away. It's much, at least 2.5 times farther away than Khaibar was. Khaibar is very, very close, and you can see some of these castles that still exist within that area till this day. You can go see them if you ever visit the Mamlaka. You can see them, and they're massive. Some of them are just huge. And these things had never been conquered throughout the maybe close to a millennium. Close to a full millennium, these castles had never been conquered before. So everyone who had tried to go and actually conquer them had failed historically. So the Prophet ﷺ would take with him, as I kind of pointed out here, he took with him a number of people, around 1,400 altogether, and he would march towards Khaibar. Khaibar is 40,000 trees. This is a very, very rich land. Within those walls is around 10,000 warriors, and there are 8 castles in total. This is the description of the area. No one had ever succeeded in conquering these castles before. So the Prophet ﷺ would go and would set his siege around the castles. It's funny because when you think about it strategically, I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense, no, but what I do feel is that the Prophet ﷺ would sometimes defy what others would feel to be just the logical move. Meaning, If you spoke to other army commanders and told them that this is what you're going to put a siege around, and here's the number of people that you have, and here's the number of people that they have, and here's how much food they have on the inside, most of them would say, maybe this is not a good idea, maybe you don't have time for this. But the Prophet ﷺ didn't care for that stuff. If this was the right move, if this was the only way to actually further his cause, if this was the way to stop the conspiracy, he was going to do it, ﷺ, even though the numbers didn't add up. Even if the numbers didn't seem to add up, numbers was something the Prophet ﷺ did not really worry about too much. He just didn't think about them too much. He just went forward with what he had. And that tells me something about his mentality, ﷺ, is that the way he saw it is that as long as he's doing everything that he can, as long as he is literally exhausting every resource, then he has nothing to really worry about. There's no reason for him to dwell too much on anything, as long as he is literally using all of the tools that he has at his disposal. This is what he's got. He has 1,400 that he doesn't have anymore. It's not like he's leaving 3/4 of his army back home. This is all he's got. It doesn't matter what the enemy has. The enemy could be 10,000, could be 40,000, it could be 1,000,000. It makes no difference to him. As long as he's using everything that he's got, then he moves forward with his plan. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I think that is a very crucial difference that he has with us, alayhi salatu wasalam, is that whatever he had, as long as he was doing everything he could, he didn't hold back, he wasn't afraid, he didn't stop, he just went forward with his plan. And I think that's an important issue for you, or an important aspect of his character, that you should take some time and think about. All you're required to do in this life is the best you can. What is the best that you've got? What's the best you've got? Just do that. And as long as you're doing that, sleep well. My friends, sleep well. Wake up in the morning feeling good and move forward. Don't worry. As long as you're doing, this is all you got? This is all I've got. Then no problem. No worries at all. Don't feel bad about anything. Don't dwell. Don't be anxious. Don't be depressed. Don't be upset. If this is all you've got and you're doing it all, then you are safe and you're doing the right thing. And alayhi salatu wasalam, I think that's why, because when you think about it, I don't understand how he was juggling so many things. Wallahi, sometimes I like to do like a cross-sectional study, just take a moment, like maybe in year 7, and just stop, just pause everything, and let's take a look at his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. Let's take a look at who he's taking care of. Let's take a look at how many people are living in his houses, alayhi salatu wasalam. How many people have died to this moment. How much wealth he actually possesses in his hand. How many threats are happening all at once. How many things are at stakes. Like how many balls is he juggling, alayhi salatu all at once? When you take a moment and look at it, you find that, wallahi, the amount of things that he's dealing with all at once are just overwhelming. Wallahi, they're overwhelming. Today, people who do something similar are usually taking, daily Adderall and Xanax and like they're just popping pills all day long just to keep their minds straight so they can get through the day. None of that, alayhi salatu wasalam. The moment things stopped, he would stand in qiyam. Like the moment the day was over and people went to sleep, everyone was at bed, he stood up, he made wudu, and he prayed for 3 or 4 hours, alayhi salatu wasalam, making qiyam layl, making dua. So how he functioned that way is just a reflection of how his mind works and how he saw the world. He knew he was doing everything he could. He kept on going. He kept on going. And alayhi salatu wasalam was surrounded by people who were willing to kind of stand by him and do the same. And that gives you a lot of strength. So they didn't think that going to Khaibar was a good move at all. If you go to Surah Al-Fath, you find them talking about that in Surah Al-Fath. The people, the munafiqeen in Medina didn't think that they were going to come back from Khaibar. The munafiqeen didn't go on this battle. بل ظننتم أن لن ينقلب الرسول والمؤمنون إلى أهليهم أبدا وزين ذلك في قلوبكم وظننتم ظن السوء وكنتم قوما بورا. In their minds, like, you're going to Khaibar? Oh no, we're busy. So the Sahaba are like, if we come back, like you're not going to come back. You guys think you're going to come back? You're not going to come back. You're going to go to Khaibar and you're going to be buried there. No one has ever conquered. What are you going to go with? 1,400? What? 100 horsemen? You're insane. They have, literally speaking, there was more food with the people of Khaibar inside the castles than the Muslims had outside. By far. Like by far. The people in Khaibar could, for a full year, close the walls and for a full year eat and drink and not worry about anything. The Muslims would starve on the outside. They would have to earn it easily. And this is not no, this is actually how it was. He still went, alayhi salatu wasalam, because that was the right thing to do. Because you have to neutralize this threat. There's no other way. I have 1,400, that's all I've got. Then I go. I go with what I've got, and I do what I can, and I push as far as I could. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decree for me whatever He wants. If He wants to decree this as a success, it will be. And if it doesn't, then we go back and we try again. But He never steps down from a fight, alayhi salatu wasalam. He never fails to deliver his 100% every single time. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think it's worthy of thought. So that's just kind of a quick reminder of what we talked about last time. So I told you a few stories on the way there. I do want to share with you a few more. So there's a man by the name of Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad radiallahu anhu. So Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad, one of the Sahaba, one of the Ansar, and he wanted to go with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, but he didn't have a lot of wealth with him at the time. And a man by the name of Abu Shahm had come to him who had lent him money. And before Khaibar, he came and told him, give me the loan. Even though it wasn't time for it yet. He told him, give me what you owe me. So Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad is like, no, we agreed 6 months from now, not today. He's like, yeah, you're not going to live 6 months. You're going with Khaibar. No, I need it now. Because you're going to go and die, and then I'm going to spend the rest of my life asking your inheritors to give me my wealth. You're going to go die, so give me what you owe me now. So they were in the masjid when this was happening. And Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad is saying, no, we agreed 6 months from now. This is not fair. And the other guy, فَارْتَفَعَتْ أَصْوَاتُهُمَا. And then their voices were higher. So the Prophet ﷺ on the other side in the Aisha's house could hear. So he pokes his head out and he says, what's the problem? Why are you yelling? So he tells them, we agreed for a year, and yet he's asking for the wealth from me today. And Abu Shahm told him, well, I don't have any, he's most likely going to die. So the Prophet ﷺ قال رد عليه ماله. Give him back what you owe him. So Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad gave him back what he owed him. But now he didn't have enough to actually go with the Prophet ﷺ anymore. He wasn't owed, he didn't own enough money to actually get his حتى يبتاع ظهره. The word ظهر means to have your camel or something to help you get there, and to have enough money to pay for food, because you're going to need to basically feed yourself and clothe yourself to get there and the way back. So he didn't have enough anymore. يقول عبد الله فجلست حزينا وحدي. I sat on the curb and I was very upset, and I was coming to tears because I couldn't go, and the army was ready and they were leaving, and I didn't own anything. قال فمرت علي امرأة عجوز. So an elderly lady of the Muslims would walk by me. فقالت ما أجلسك هنا يا صاحب رسول الله. O companion of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. That's how they used to call each other. It was a nickname of such high status. And instead of calling you by your name, if they want to respect each other, they would say Ya Sahib Rasulillah. Oh, Ya Sahibat Rasulillah, because you're one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a high honor. So when they honor each other, that's what they said. So she's kind of honoring him, but also she's shaming him. And what are you doing here? You're the companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Why aren't you with them? What are you doing? قال ما تسأله هنا يا صاحب رسول الله. What are you doing here? فقال ليس عندي ثمن ظهر. I don't have enough money to buy what I'm going to need to get to where I need to go. فقالت هذا ثوبي فخذه. In another narration, there are two narrations of this hadith, and I don't know which one is the correct one because I don't have a reason to see one to be more important than the other. In one of the narrations, she says she gave him one of her clothing, like she gave a piece of clothing for him to sell. And another narration that she actually cut her hair off, and she gave him her hair to him to sell. تقول خذ هذا فبيعه حتى أثوب معكم. Take this and sell it and buy what you need, and so I get the ajr of what you're going to do and leave. So he took it from her, radiallahu anha, and he was sold whatever it is that she gave him, and he was able to buy what he needed to go. The Prophet ﷺ would not allow people to go if they didn't have enough. You weren't allowed to get to join the army and leave without enough food and clothing and to make sure that you get to your destination and back again. Because if you go that way and you starve halfway in the middle on the way, now the people around you have to feed you, and now you're making it difficult for everybody. That makes sense? You couldn't just get up and walk and like, well, if I got hungry when people are eating, I'll eat with them. No, everyone's taking enough to make it to their destination. So you have to take care of yourself. If you don't have enough wealth, then you don't go. Which is a weird, interesting aspect. Meaning when it came to this was business. You're going. This is a battle. You have to make sure you have enough. Because if you go and halfway there, you're hungry and thirsty because you don't have enough money. You didn't bring enough to buy anything. You didn't bring your zawad with you. Your zad. Then you're not allowed to leave. So those Sahaba would sit around. None of them would just say, okay, I'm going to go, and once I'm hungry, I'll find someone to feed me. They didn't do that. The Prophet ﷺ would forbid that. So Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad was able to buy what he needed from the generosity of this elderly lady. And all this really shows me, or all this, the reason that I brought up the story is for two reasons. First one is the Prophet ﷺ's fairness. He could have told Abu Shahm, who was fighting with Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad for his loan, to tell him, what are you talking about? No, don't do that now. I need as many men as I had to take as many men as I can. this is an impossible conquest that I'm going on. I don't need more people staying back because one person is too cheap to wait until we come back. And Abdullah ibn Hadr is telling him, don't worry, when I come back with the bounty, I'll give you back your loan. I'll give you back, I'll gift you as well with it. And he says, no, you're not coming back, so don't just pay me now. So the Prophet ﷺ didn't take that as offense. He wasn't offended by that. He didn't stand by. He told him, pay him back. The Prophet ﷺ, what you'll find, and the reason I bring up these stories, is that when you study his life, ﷺ, what you find is that he was extremely, extremely fair. He was very just. At moments when you would think that if he wasn't, it wouldn't be a big deal. Meaning you would say, this is for the sake of the Muslims' cause. This is a person who is being unreasonable. But the Prophet ﷺ always sided on the side of justice. And if that meant Abdullah ibn Abi Hadr wasn't going to go, then he wasn't going to go. If that meant the Prophet ﷺ was going to lose another warrior, then that meant he was going to lose another warrior. And that's not the end of the world, and he was okay with that, alayhi salatu wasalam. The second piece is you look at this community where everybody is interested in supporting everyone else. Where this elderly lady who did not know him would be willing to give him something very personal to herself for him to sell in order for him to go on this conquest. It wasn't a loan, it was just a gift. Here, take this, sell it, and go with them. Because this way, whatever good you do on the way there, I will be able to, I'll get the ajr with you when you do so. I just find that to be it's very uplifting to know that people back then, at a time when they didn't have a lot, where they were quite poor. Financially, they were quite poor, but spiritually, they were very rich. On a spiritual, psychological, mental level, they were extremely rich. They were the richest generation that you'll ever hear about. Financially, they didn't have a lot, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because when it comes to money comes and goes. Abdullah ibn Abi Hadr would come back, and he would have his one share of the bounty of Khaibar, as I'll tell you, was 10 times more than what he owed the other gentleman. Interestingly enough, the other gentleman, within the month that it took for him to go, or the month and a half that it took him to go to Khaibar and come back, this other gentleman had a problem where his whole orchard burnt down, and he came and he was standing in front of the masjid asking people for loans, and he asked Abdullah ibn Abi Hadr for it, and he holds back for a moment, and then in the narration that Ibn Ishaq has in his book, that the Prophet ﷺ looked at him and then walked away, and Abdullah ibn Hadr understood the glance of the Prophet ﷺ, and he lent him the money. Even though he had done that at the beginning. And it's just interesting. And for me, I like the story because what goes around comes around. What goes around comes around in life. This is a very simple law of the universe. It's a part of every faith. It's a part of every human understanding of the world. What you do in this, whatever energy, whatever you pump out into the world will boomerang at 360 and come right back to you. It's just a matter of time. This is a part of understanding Islam. You put out khair will come back. You put out shar, just a matter of time before it comes back and hits you again as well. And that's just how life goes. So don't worry about having difficulties and people not treating you the way you think you should be treated and people making life difficult for you. What are you putting out into the world? Are you projecting goodness? Don't worry. That'll all come back to you. Just keep on doing that and forget about these little difficulties are just a test to see how honest you are, how truthful you are, how sincere you are in terms of the goodness that you're going to continue to project out into the world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to accept this goodness as face value. No. You do it, you're going to be tested. Let's see how honest you are. Let's see how real you are. Let's throw a couple of obstacles on the way. Let's hit through a few curveballs. Let's see if you can fall flat on your face. We get up again, or you're going to say, nope, I've tried already. Doesn't work, people aren't good, I'm going to stop. Okay, fine, good. At least we figured out that you're not real and you're not sincere about being someone of that nature. And that's what's going to happen. And I think these stories are of worth because of that. Alayhi salatu wasalam would arrive at, did I talk about Ghatafan here? Or did I forget? Oh, okay, I talked about it, good. So once he arrived at Khaibar, alayhi salatu wasalam, he would make this dua. I put that dua up there because I think it's worthy of us learning. This is a dua you should make anytime you visit any land. Anytime you go anywhere in the world, if you're traveling by plane or by car or by train or by boat, however you're traveling, this is a dua to make when you enter a place and you're going there for a visit. Or you're going there, you're not sure what you're going to find. So this is the dua he would make. He would say, alayhi salatu, Allahumma Rabb as-samawati as-sab'i wa ma adlaln, wa Rabb al-aradina as-sab'i wa ma aqlaln, wa Rabb al-shayatini wa ma adlaln, wa Rabb al-riyahi wa ma darayn, inna nas'aluka khayra hadhihi al-qarya wa khayra ahliha, wa na'udhu bika min sharriha wa sharri ahliha wa sharri ma fiha. So you say, oh Allah, the Lord of the seven skies or seven heavens and everything that they encompass, and the Lord of the 7 earths and everything that they have on them, and the Lord of all of the demons and everyone that they have misled, and the Lord of the winds and all the good that they bring, we ask you the best of this land and the best of the people within it, and we seek refuge in you from the evil within this land, the evil of the people within it, and the evil of it. So this is what you would say every time you would go to a new place. Because the Prophet ﷺ, you can see from this dua that he's not going there hungry for blood. He's not there for war. He's going there saying, Ya Rabb, I want the good of this place, not the evil of this place. Let's see if we can figure this out. This whole battle, by the way, only 96 people died. Like in this whole Ghazwat Khaibar, which we're talking about 1,400 squaring off with 10,000, the siege around 8 castles, and they're going to actually conquer, as I explain in a moment, 96 people altogether. That's it. 16 Muslims and 80 from the other side. That was it. There was very, very small amount of bloodshed because the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't want this to turn into a war. He was trying to force their hand to a treaty, which is what was going to happen at the end. So on the way there, just an interesting, I love this story. I think it's actually it's a story that you could easily miss when you study the Battle of Khaibar because it's not really, doesn't really affect the battle itself. It's just a story of a man by the name of Abu Abs, radiallahu anhu, one of the Sahaba. The Prophet ﷺ, I love this story because of the symbolism in it. Here's what happened. The Prophet ﷺ said, I don't want people scattered. I want the army, because they were coming towards an area that was just unknown territory. There was a certain degree of uncertainty. They weren't comfortable. So he said, I don't want people scattered. I don't want people up front and behind. Everyone come close and we all move together. I don't want anyone on the outskirts of this group anymore. So everyone came back. Except Abu Abs. Abu Abs, at some point, decided to go way ahead of the army. He was like maybe a couple of kilometers ahead. And the Prophet ﷺ would see someone ahead. Everyone would be on guard. And they would find out it's not even like an enemy, it's just Abu Abs. So they call Abu Abs and he would tell him, أَمَا أَخْبَرْتُكَ أَلَّا يَتَمَيَّزَنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنْكُمْ. Did I not say that no one go on their own and be? فَقَالَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ نَاقَتِي سَرِيعَةً. I have a quick camel, what can I do? فَقَالَ عُدْ إِلَى مُؤَخِّرَةِ الْجَيْشِ. Go to the end of the jaysh. قَالَ وَيَوْمًا لَا يُكَلِّمُهُ أَحَدٍ. And for a full day, no one would speak to him. He was told, no one will speak to you for a full day. So he spent 24 hours at the end of the army, no one's allowed to speak to him until it was over. And I love this story for a few reasons. I think sometimes we overestimate the importance of removing ourselves from the group, or sometimes we overestimate the importance of individuality a little bit, especially now. Can I say that without being canceled? Can I say that maybe we're just a little bit overestimating the importance of our individuality, just a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, just a little bit. That maybe we're pushing it a little bit too far. That yes, I'm an individual and I have my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own story, but that goes without saying. That's never been different. The world's always been like that. Every person is their own individual. But really, Islam is about understanding the importance of jama'ah, understanding the importance of being a part of a group where you breathe as one organism, where this group lives the life as if they're one big organism, where you work together, where the whole group is being cared for, where the weakest and the strongest in the group continue to work for the best interest of the group itself, where I'm not trying to remove myself from the group so I can preach to the group, or preach about the group, or look down at the group, or point out problems in the group, and I put myself on the outskirts. No, that's not a healthy way to live a life. Honestly, it is not. And as Muslims, this is a part of who we are. We are a part of an ummah. We are a part of a nation, of a jama'ah. We can never forget that. Never forget everything that we do, everything that I do in my life. The point of it is to strengthen the ummah. That's the point, that's the goal. The goal is to strengthen this nation, to strengthen this group. That's the effort that I have to put into this. Me, I don't matter. What matters is the group. And that has to be your concept, the way of looking at things. As individuals, we only matter in terms of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at us and accepting what we're doing. That's where your individuality becomes important. That you are trying to further yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that you make it on the day of judgment. But in terms of what you're doing here, all that matters is how valuable are you to this group? How much are you pumping into it? How much are you contributing positively? How much do the group's best interest has to outweigh any personal interest that you have in your life. And Abu Abs, for a moment there, felt like he could be a little bit of ahead of the group. Just a little bit ahead because he had a stronger account. No, go back and sit at the beginning. Go sit at the back. No one speak to him. You're a part of this group. What do you mean you have a strong camel? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Yes, I understand you have a great camel, but your brother doesn't. He has an old camel. He has an old rusty, ugly-looking camel. So maybe we don't make him feel, self-conscious about that. That's the camel that he has. And if you have a great thing, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you. It's great. That's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Stick with the group. Stick with everyone around you, because it's not about you. And it's not about me. It's not about individuals. It's about the group. It's about the best interest of the ummah, of the nation. And this, to me, is just a really interesting example. I don't know. I find it very clear and very, there's no clutter around this story. It's very simple. He gave him a command. This guy didn't listen because he felt like he could get away with it because he had a little bit more. He sent him back, and no one spoke to him for a day. And Abu Abs would perform full tawbah, and there's more to the story that'll come later, inshallah. But just the concept itself, to me, is very valuable. Please see yourself as not just as an individual, but see yourself as a part of a bigger story, of a group. You belong to a beautiful legacy of people who loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who stood by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, who believe in that book. You're a part of this big group. This is the group that you owe your effort and your energy and your time and your dedication and your commitment. You owe it to them, just like they owe it to you, inshallah, to protect you and stand by you. We are not doing this well. This whole dynamic isn't working very well anymore. It's just not. It's not. But it can, if maybe the individuals within this group start to see their roles a little bit different. You stop focusing on how far ahead you're getting, how high you're being elevated. Focus on what you're doing. How are you contributing? And just do that. Just put your head down and just focus on the contribution and the help that you're offering, and be a part of the group. It's easy to want to when the group sucks, when the group isn't that great, it's easy to want to take a step back and say, well, I'm not. No, you are. You're exactly like them. You're like everyone else. Stop saying that. I don't like when I complain about how Muslims behave. I don't complain about Muslims. I'm complaining about myself. I'm complaining about the people I love. I'm not complaining about people that are foreign to me. I'm not complaining about people that I don't. No, this is us. We have to get better. We have to become better. We can. It's just a matter of us seeing ourselves as a part of something bigger. And the Prophet ﷺ had how many times have you heard the Prophet ﷺ punish somebody? Let's see. I've been telling the stories we started this. Tell me, how many times have you heard the Prophet ﷺ punish? So far, if you are not going to talk about a few things coming in later on in the seerah, up till now, how many people has he punished? Yeah, put your hand up. Let's see. Up till now in this year, the 7th year of Hijrah, how many people do you know he punished, alayhi salatu wasalam? Hey, see? No one. Honestly, if you have someone, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, give me. Yeah, but who are they? Yeah, those 3 are going to come later. So the 3 you're talking about are going to come later. They haven't happened yet. They're going to happen in year number 10. They haven't happened yet, right? You're right. It's not happened yet. But up till now, almost no. Very few people. You don't have, there are a few examples, but they're not even worthy. But this here, he punished him. A full day, no one speaks to you. But why? Because you don't make that mistake. No. Don't ever leave your group. Don't ever leave that. You stick to the group. You stick to the jama'ah. You stand by them. You support them. You aid them. You teach them. You either sail with them or you sink with them. And that's how your mentality has to work. And the moment you isolate yourself, the moment you remove yourself from the group, you preach to them or about them or from afar, you've already lost your way. Even if what you're saying is correct. Even if we're not organized and we don't know how to put our shoes properly and we fight in the parking lot. Even if we do these things, the moment you isolate yourself and you decide you're not a part of this group anymore and somehow you're better, you've already lost your way. This is the group. This is who we are. We're going to work on ourselves together. And I think this story to me is it's just a powerful message, because I don't know the Prophet ﷺ to be someone who's quick to punish people. Right? He's very merciful, very easygoing. But here he's like, no, go back to the end. Go back to the end. I told you to stick with the group. You don't have the right to do that. You don't have the right. None of us do. And I think that's something for us to learn. So what happens, and he was right, alayhi salatu wasalam, to be a little bit on guard, because exactly what he was a little bit uncertain about, or he's feeling a little bit worried, is that Khaibar had already prepared how they were going to annihilate the Muslims. He's coming towards Khaibar. We're going to obviously confront him from behind the walls. And we've spoken with Ghatafan. Ghatafan has always been a problem. Uyayna bin Hisn was the leader. He has a large tribe. A lot of them are warriors. He brought 4,000 or more people on the day of the trench, on the day of Khandaq. And I told you the story, how the Prophet ﷺ tried to negotiate with him. And now again, Khaybar had corresponded with him. That once Muhammad ﷺ is close to Khaybar, come from behind. Bring your 4,000. and then we will completely destroy them from behind. So the Prophet ﷺ intelligence groups picked up that Ghatafan were coming from behind. So now he had to slow down. He had to slow down. He didn't keep on going. He had to slow down a bit, and he had to correspond with the leader of Ghatafan, Uyayna bin Hisn, and send him some, offering him, saying, look, go back and we'll offer you half of whatever we make from the thimar of Khaibar, from the fruits of Khaibar. Once this treaty is over, we'll give you half of whatever we make. So he told him, sorry, good try. But the people of Khaibar have already promised me all of the fruit for a full year if I do this. So that's not going to work. So the Prophet ﷺ continues to negotiate with him. And finally he tells him, if you keep on marching, all you're going to find is the wrong edge of my sword. So maybe you should consider going back. But Uyayna was like, no, I have 10,000 people in Khaibar over there. This is going to be easy. So this is where we have Talha and Zubayr ibn Awam. Talha ibn Ubaydillah and Zubayr, the two of the 10 Mubashirin bil Jannah, they do an amazing job. This is what they do. So they put together a small group of people and they start a little bit of propaganda. And they start spreading rumors that the Prophet ﷺ had left in Medina a small army, which is sole purpose is the moment that Uyayna would move with his army from Ghatafan, that army would go and raid Ghatafan, the actual tribe. And they spread these rumors, and they used people they had within Ghatafan. Like they had Muslims who were keeping their Islam secret within the tribe, within the army, and he used them, they kind of turned them on to spread these rumors. These rumors became so strong and so clear that Uyayna bin Hisn started to correspond with Khaibar, and the Prophet ﷺ was picking up these messages on the way back and forth, saying that we can't keep on doing this because we don't know what's happening. There's an army that's going to, and the people of Khaibar saying, no, it's all a lie. This is all just propaganda. There's no one there. But he got so scared that he actually retreated back to Ghatafan to defend it. By the time he figured out it was all a lie, there was nothing there, the Prophet ﷺ had finished his siege around Khaibar. And this shows you the actual strength of the intelligence group that the Prophet ﷺ had built. Sometimes we are misguided or we're led to believe, mistakenly so, that the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims just did things with no planning. And that's not what I'm saying. And I purposefully started this halaqah by telling you the Prophet ﷺ would go, if he did everything he could, he just went, even if the numbers didn't add up. But I told you at the beginning that if he did everything he could, so he made sure that he exhausted all of the resources that were available to him. That doesn't mean that he walked in blind. It doesn't mean that he did not plan things out. It doesn't mean he didn't think of different scenarios properly. It doesn't mean that he didn't come up with different things that could happen and have solutions for them. Because if he did, he just walked in blindly every time, he would have been, the Muslims would have been annihilated at least 4 or 5 times throughout the Seerah. At least 4 or 5 times, easily. But the Prophet ﷺ, a part of doing everything he could is that he had a very, very strong intelligence group that knew what they were doing, that were basically monitoring the whole area at all times and had plans ready. If one tribe or another tribe decided to actually break their treaty with him or decided to join Khaibar from a different angle, they had plans put in place. So that's what I mean by him doing everything he could, alayhi salatu wasalam. And just saying, that's what I meant by it. Because sometimes we think, it's just a matter, okay, get together, yallah, move. Oh, who cares? No, he plans things out, alayhi salatu. But I'm saying is that he wouldn't dwell on numbers if this is all he had. If he had 1,400, he didn't have more, he wouldn't say, well, because we only have 1,400, then we can't do. No. That's what we've got. We're going to move forward with what we've got. But we're going to make sure that we dot every I, we cross every T, and we think of every scenario possible, and we make sure we have plans for them. And he did, alayhi salatu, which is why he was successful. That's why when the mustashriqeen, when those who study the Prophet ﷺ's life without believing in him, when they try to categorize him, they find it very difficult because there's so many aspects of his character. But really what they come down to is that he was an extremely talented army commander. Because from that perspective, he was just almost unparalleled. Yani, when we talk about Khalid ibn Walid was beaten by the Prophet ﷺ multiple times. And he would say this, قال ما غلمني أحد إلا رسول الله. No one actually beat me in war except the Prophet ﷺ. He outsmarted me more than once. قال ويوم أحد ما غلبتهم إلا بطمع بعضهم. And the day of Uhud, I didn't beat them because I was smart. I beat them because there were some people who were greedy on there and didn't listen. But I had a plan. I was going to come from behind. He had 40 people on the mountain waiting for me. Meaning my whole plan was, he had read my plan before it happened and I couldn't even do anything. So the Prophet ﷺ thought ahead. He just didn't dwell on maybe not having as much as others had. I think that's the point that we should learn. And I think that's a very worthy lesson of learning. They would arrive at Khaibar and they would set camp they set camp in an area where they could see the first castle. The castles were one after the other, a castle, a wall, and then another castle and a wall. So 8 castles, 8 walls. So they would actually stop in front of one of the, and wherever they went, obviously, the army on the other side would just move with them. So it doesn't matter where you stop your army, you're going to have an army behind the castle wherever you stop. So the Prophet ', he set camp in a place where you could see the castle. So after they set camp there, the same guy, this is the only story, these are 2 stories I have for him. The same guy who spoke to him back at the day of Badr. Remember the day of Badr? When the Prophet ', set camp, there's a man who came to him and told him, is this a place where God told you, or what is this? I want to make a comment. And you remember the guy, his name is Hubab ibn al-Mundhir. And he came and told the Prophet ﷺ, maybe this is not the right place. And the Prophet ﷺ said, listen. So he comes again. He said, Ya Rasulullah, أهذا منزل أنزلكه الله. Is this where Allah told you to camp? So I shut up and just, فقال لا. قال هو منزل تحبه. Is this a place you're happy with, so I don't say anything? قال لا. قال هو الحرب والرأي والمكيدة. Is this just like war and tactics and strategy and stuff like that? فقال نعم. فقال فيا رسول الله هذا ليس بمنزل. وإنما عد إلى الوراء تراجع حتى لا يرموك بسهامهم ولا يروا أعدادنا. Go back a bit, Ya Rasulullah, because here they can see us. So they can actually, because they had catapults and they had their archers, this is not far enough. They can actually get us with their archers and their catapults. And they can see us, they can size us up in terms of numbers. We go back a bit, Ya Rasulullah, so they can't see us clearly anymore, and their archers can't reach that far. فقال نعم صدقت, but not tonight. I'm not doing it now. قال يا رسول الله ولما, why not tonight? And he said حتى لا يظنوا أننا جبنا. They don't think that we're afraid of them. ثم قال للصحابة ارفعوا الليلة أصواتكم بالتهليل والتكبير والتحميد. And then tonight, all of you raise your voices with the dhikr. So everyone's saying, لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد, in loud voices so that the people in Khaibar could hear, so that when they retreat, they don't think that we're afraid. So there's no misunderstanding that they retreated out of fear. It wasn't out of fear, it was out of strategy. So that's what he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. So the whole night, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam had the Sahaba doing the takbir and the tahmid in loud voices, which is something that brought the morale down for the people on the other side. They were very scared. These things, these sounds that the Muslims would make, these chants that the Muslims would make, coming from their hearts, is something that would very much bother their enemies. Very much. It was a very bothersome thing. Because the Muslims, when they said these things, when they chanted La ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, walillahi alhamd, these are things that the Muslims said that they had full conviction. They loved these words. They loved these adhkar. They believed in them and they were a part of it. It is the source of their strength. Really, as a Muslim, this is the source of if you're strong. If you're a strong Muslim, your strength comes from the belief you have in these words. When you say La ilaha illallah, when you say Allahu Akbar, when you say Alhamdulillah, these words symbolize for you meanings that are very deep. They run in your blood. It's a part of your DNA. It's the source of your calmness and your clarity. So they would say them, and they would raise their voices, and the other army that doesn't have something like that, that don't really have a conviction that runs that deep, they don't believe in something that is that profound, feel weak. It doesn't have to do a lot with how big you are and how strong and how much you got. What makes you strong is this inner aspect of yourself, this inner peace, this inner calmness, this belief that you have that allows you to be very clear about who you are and what you're doing. And that is overwhelming. When you run into people like that, they overwhelm you. Because you can be sitting there with all of these degrees and all this money, but inside you're weak, and the strength of the person, their inner strength, is just, it overwhelms you. The Prophet ﷺ, not only was he like that, so his presence ﷺ, was felt physically when he was in a room, but he taught the people around him to have that same strength, just to have that weight as a human being. And that comes from this inner strength that they had. So when they would do their tahleel and takbir and tahmeed, it weakened just the words themselves coming from that inner strength weakened the people on the other side. And the people of Khaibar were already scared. And the leaders of Khaibar were already, at that point, they were already running into trouble. Because the people inside were hearing all this. SubhanAllah, shuf how easy it is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were telling their leaders we should surrender. And their leaders are like, what, are you insane? We can easily outlast them. They can never conquer these walls. It's impossible. They don't look at them. They don't have any tools. What are they going to? How are they going to conquer these walls? They have no golems. They have nothing. What are they going to do? They can't go through these walls. They're going to sit there. And we have more food here. We can outlast them within a few weeks. Just don't. But it was already a struggle. They were already ru'b. the fear that was in them, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tool, that just came from that strength that the Muslims had, where they weren't scared. When you run into someone who believes in what they believe in calmly, fearlessly, courageously, with that degree of serenity and tranquility and acceptance and contempt, with the realization of what they have is the truth, that's a dangerous person. Governments have worked very hard to make sure people like that don't exist anymore. It's very easy. All you have to do is just throw 15 distractions. Here's a bunch of sports and video games, and here's all this stuff. One of these things, you'll glue yourself to one of them. One of these things will distract you to the point where you don't have time to build those convictions and that strength and that clarity. Something just to take away from your time, because if you spend 3 or 4 hours every day or 2 hours, if you spend enough hours doing that thing, it means you didn't spend those hours actually understanding who you are and what you're going to do with your life, which means you're not going to be that strong, which means you're not going to be a threat. But if you did, you spend enough time learning your deen, understanding who you are and what you're here for, then you become someone who's scary. And not in a violent way. I'm tired of this, yani. I'm trying to defend this, wallahi, I'm so tired of it. Because Muslims have never, historically, read his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. Read the Quran, ya akhi. We're not violent people, nor do we look towards violence, but we don't back down from what is right. We're not scared of voicing our concerns when righteousness is at stake. We don't accept oppression. We don't contribute to it. And we don't sit around watching when people are ruining their lives and the lives of others. And that's just who we are as Muslims. That's how we're supposed to be. That only happens when people are like that. So they would go back a little bit the morning after. And for 15 days, they would strike a siege around the castles of Khaibar. 15 days, nothing happened. 15 days, it was not successful. 15, huh? You're like, well, you kind of misled us with your storytelling, because it seemed like they were going to just, no, 15 days. And the Muslims didn't do too well. The story of Abdullah ibn Maghfal, radiallahu anhu. You know his story? Abdullah ibn Maghfal, they got so hungry, this is what he's telling you, that everyone got so hungry because they ran out of food within a week. No more food, nothing left. They starved. So Abdullah ibn Maghfal found, in one narration, he found a piece of meat, a small piece of meat. In another narration, he found a few dates. We don't know exactly, whatever it is. He picked up the piece of food. يقول فأخذتها وتبسمت, and I smiled. فقلت آكلها, something to eat. Alhamdulillah, I have something to eat. Finally, I'm starving. He found it. He's brushing it off to eat it. قال فقبل أن آكلها نظرت. Before I eat it, I looked behind. فإذا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And the Prophet was standing behind me, ينظر إلي, looking at me, يتبسم تبسم الغضبان, and he's smiling at me, the smile of someone who's upset with you. يهز رأسه, just looking at me. قال فأخذتها فناديت الصحابة فأكلتها معهم. Then I went and I called the Sahaba, and I divided it with the Sahaba, and I ate it with them. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, didn't say a word, just looked at him. You eat alone, huh? You eat alone? Why? They're not hungry? Just you? Your stomach is more valuable than theirs? Your agony, your pain, your struggling, your suffering is more valuable than someone else's? Why? See, that's the bad part of individuality. Individualism is a nice concept if you learn what it actually means. It just means that you have every right to believe in yourself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you as an individual, not just as a group. That He knows your name, and He cares for you as an individual, and that you have potential as an individual to do great things. That's what individualism means. It doesn't mean that you are more valuable than other people. It doesn't mean that when you're a part of a group, you decide that, I'll find my way to the front of the line because I matter more. No, that doesn't mean that. That's a horrible way of looking at the world. That's a sinful way of looking at the world. That's the definition of arrogance. That's where racism starts. It starts with one person being arrogant, and then maybe joining forces with another person who's also a little bit arrogant. And then you have a group that are arrogant, and then they look down at another group of people, and then we have what we have today. So Abdullah bin Maghfal, for a moment there, allowed his, but he was starving. Do you forgive him? I forgive him. I have no problem. I probably would have done the same. I probably wouldn't even look behind me. I probably may have looked behind me. The Prophet was smiling, offered him. He doesn't want to edit myself. But Abdullah bin Maghfal had the level of sensitivity where he understood what the Prophet ﷺ meant just by the way he looked. Understood? No. It's like when you've been told something enough and you're going to do the wrong thing. All it takes is the person who taught you to look at you, right? A child at home. If you've done something wrong, all it takes is your parent to look at you and you know exactly what you've done wrong. You get up and go do it because this has been talked about many times before. So it's like the Prophet ﷺ had talked about this. Don't be selfish. Do not be selfish. Never ever enjoy anything on your own if others are suffering. He's taught this concept a million times. So the moment Abdullah bin Maghfal thought that he was going to eat by himself, he looked at the Prophet ﷺ, didn't need to say anything. He knew what he'd done wrong. He knew that thinking that way, that wanting to enjoy something on his own was not the right way to go. So he went immediately, called the Sahaba, and fed as many as he could from what he had. But this is how hungry they became, that they had almost nothing left. People's morale started to drop, the Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ would come and he called a man by the name of Salama ibn al-Akwa. فَقَالَ خُذْ لَنَا, this is in the hadith, قَالَ خُذْ لَنَا مِنْ هَنَّاتِكَ يَا ابْنَ الْأَكْوَعِ. So hannatika means let us hear something, sing something, give us something nice to hear. And so Salama would recite the verses of poetry that they had learned back when they were building the masjid maybe 7 years before. That Abdullah bin Rawaha had, Allahumma lawla anta mahtadayna, wa la tasaddaqna, wa la sallayna, fa anzilan sakinatan alayna, inna al-bughata qad tagaw alayna, in aradu fitnatan abayna. So at the end of each verse, the Prophet ﷺ would yell out the last verse, the last word. فَقَالَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا فِتْنَةً أَبَيْنَا. He would scream out, أَبَيْنَا. And he would call it out. And if you go to the Middle East and you attend a wedding, they have something called zajal. They do where they say poetry, and at the end of and it has a certain rhythm. What I did was a horrible example of that rhythm. It's completely wrong, but they do it in a certain rhythm, and at the end, the last word that is said, everyone in the crowd will scream out the word. It's ridiculous for people who don't belong to that culture, but that's how it works. So the Prophet ﷺ was basically, I think I've said this so many times that you're getting bored of it. The Prophet ﷺ utilized someone who had some artistic aspect of their personality. He brought in a little bit of art, ﷺ. He brought a little bit of art into the middle of it. Because art brings up the morale. It strengthens the culture. It allows people to feel that they're together a little bit more. It does that. It's very, you cannot, and I've said this so many times, you cannot have a nahda, you can't have an uprising of a society, a community, or a nation without art. It's not going to happen. I know we think it's not. Every community needs art because youth adhere to art. They love it. It's a part of, they have a lot of passion, a lot of emotion. They have the artistic part has not been beaten to death by life yet. I mean, it hasn't been numbed completely and destroyed. If you're in your 50s, you've lost that long time ago, unless you're very lucky, you kept it alive, because life just beats it out of you completely, so you don't even care about it anymore. But if you're young, it's still there. So if you come to a community, or you come to a culture, you come to an ideology, and there's no art there, it's not very enjoyable. Like, it's not something that they want to be a part of right away, which makes the job of someone like me really difficult. It's really hard because you're trying to attract people with very little art available to you. The Prophet ﷺ had shu'ara. He had people who were his poets, and they said poetry that people memorized. And he made sure that at moments when people's morale was falling, he brought someone in to sing it. Salama ibn al-Akwa, why didn't Umar al-Khattab sing this out? Why didn't Uthman? Because they had bad voices. And Salama ibn al-Akwa had a great one, and he had an amazing sound to him, and he carried a rhythm greatly. So he brought him in, and he sung it out, and people enjoyed it, and they were singing, and they were feeling better about themselves a little bit. And that's his wisdom, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it comes to these things. So I'm going to just share one more story. Is there a Kahoot? Oh, perfect. So there's a Kahoot tonight, so prepare your phones. But I'm telling you one more story before we move on. The Prophet ﷺ, on the 14th night, developed a migraine. Remember in Uhud how he fell into the hole? He fell into the hole, and he basically, the helmet went into his skull, and it broke his tooth. And they had to pull it out, and it was a big mess because the Prophet ﷺ's face there were scars on his face, and he bled out a lot, alayhi salatu wasalam. Since Uhud, he would have these times where once every month or two, where he would get very weak and get tired and have a migraine and had to go home and be in the dark for a little bit, alayhi salatu wasalam. It just would happen to him. So it happened during the battle of Khaibar. So he went, and he had been trying for the 15 nights to conquer the wall, like try to get through the door. Like he was strategizing, trying to find a weak spot on the wall of the castle to get in, and he had not been able to do it, alayhi salatu wasalam. So the first night he had a migraine. He said, Abu Bakr, tomorrow you carry the raya, you go try and istaftah yaftah Allahu alayk, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you victory, and inshallah will grant you victory. So he goes, and Abu Bakr tries, and it doesn't work out. The next night, the Prophet ﷺ says, Umar al-Khattab, you're going to do it tomorrow, go try tomorrow. So Umar al-Khattab does it tomorrow, it doesn't work out either. And by then, the morale had also come down quite a bit. The Prophet ﷺ has a headache. It's 4 nights of trying to conquer, they haven't been able to do it. It's been 15 days altogether. It's not going well. So the Prophet ﷺ would do this after Salat al-Isha, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال غدا, he would say, Ya Salama, itini bil raya, bring me the flag. So the banner. So the banner which is the army's most important thing. Only the leader carries it. Bring me the banner. The banner was brought, and it was stuck right beside the Prophet ﷺ where he was praying. He was praying right there beside him. فقال غدا أعطي الراية رجلا يحب الله ورسوله ويحبه الله ورسوله. Tomorrow I give the banner to someone who loves Allah and His Prophet, and whom Allah and His Prophet love him back. And then he goes to sleep. And the Sahaba spend all night. يقول عمر فما تمنيت الإمارة إلا يومها. The only day that I really hoped that I would be even though I was the leader the night before, I was hoping I would be the leader again, is that night because of the description he gave. يقول فأتى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة الفجر فإذا المكان مكتظ. He came for Fajr, it was packed. Everyone was there for Fajr. Everyone, not one person didn't come. يقول كل بعد الفجر يعرض نفسه على رسول الله. Everyone after Fajr is kind of finding an excuse why he's going to come and walk in front of the Prophet ﷺ in full armor, well, everything polished, looking good, his sword out, hoping the Prophet ﷺ chooses him. Everyone's kind of putting on a little bit of a show. The Prophet ﷺ, so this is the beauty of his character ﷺ. He knew that if he gave a description like that, people would bring the best of, he would bring the best out of them ﷺ. ثم قال, after people had kind of shown themselves off a little bit, قال أين علي؟ فقالوا يا رسول الله عنده رمد. No, Ali is sick. He's sick. Someone, don't forget about Ali. He's sick. Something wrong with his eye. Something wrong with his eye. He has a pink eye. He's fine. يقول الزبير فقلنا له هو مريض. He's fine. He's sick. He's not doing well. Someone else يا رسول الله. يقول الزبير, he's showing himself. Yeah. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام قال ائتوني به. Bring him here. They brought Sayyidina Ali. يقول سيدنا علي فأنامني أمامه. He put me on. He laid me down. قال ثم أخذ فتفل في يده ومسح على عيني. يرقيني ويقرأ من كتاب الله. He put his hand, he recited the Quran, and he started to wipe my eye with his hand. صلى الله عليه وسلم. يقول فتمنيت أن يكون الرمد في عيني حتى يرقيني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I hope that I had more illnesses for the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام to continue to wipe over me and make dua for me. يقول فقمت فوالله ما أذكر في أي عيني كان الرمد. That I got up and I didn't know anymore which I can't remember. I have no recollection with it, which is because he said like this eye. I had one of these eyes. I always got pink eye. Every once in a while I would get it. It was annoying. And since the Prophet ﷺ did that for me, I don't remember anymore. I do not remember anymore which of my eyes had a disease in it. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he would give him the banner, and I'll tell you how things move on from this story, inshallah ta'ala, next week. We're going to have the kahoots, inshallah. So if you have a phone, take it out and then participate, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, subhanallah, bihamdihi, la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Barakallahu fikum. Or do you want to use this one? Yeah, this one's better. It's better. Yeah, put it on. You start right before people leave.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Adan. If you guys all want to just pull out your phones and open kahoot.it on Google. You have to put in the code 5110245. We'll get started shortly, inshallah. Mike's good. There'll be prizes too. For the top 3 players, it's going to be prizes, inshallah. We're going to get started shortly, inshallah, so try and join as soon as possible. There's also going to be prizes. 3 prizes for the top 3 players. There's going to be prizes. Am I too quiet?
Huh?
Am I too quiet?
Yeah, you are too quiet.
Bro, this mic's tweaking, bro. Just give me that.
It's not too weak. Come up here.
Good.
You want to talk?
Good. Can you hear? Is it better? Okay, we're going to get started in 10 seconds, inshallah. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yallah. Yeah, we're good. All right, so first question, what was Khalid ibn Walid's genius battle strategy? Was it a retreat, an ambush, a fake incoming support, or all of the above? Remember, it's not only if you get the right answer, it's how fast you choose the right answer. That's how you get points as well. Okay, so it was a fake incoming support. Only 11 people got that right. I don't think many of you guys were paying attention. Okay, yalla, next question. Yo, next question. Okay, first place we have Nadeem. Nadeem in first place. Okay, why were the Muslim army of Mu'tah not celebrated after they returned to Medina? So first option is because they deserted their positions. Second option, because they appointed Khalid ibn Walid as leader. Third, because they allowed their leaders to die. And lastly, none of the above. It was green, none of the above. A lot of people chose red. Can you pass me the remote so I can zoom out? Okay.
You can't do anything.
Okay, first place. The Muslim soldiers of Mu'tah were ordered to bathe, clean their clothes and armor because ... They were filthy, it was sunnah, it was a battle strategy, and lastly, they were celebrating the win. We have 29 answers. Last one. Oh, it was yellow. Inshallah, a lot of you guys got that one right. Western Edge in first place. If you guys are in any other programs, you guys can't let them take over, guys. Come on, yallah. Okay, Khalid ibn Walid was personally appointed leader by the Prophet ﷺ. Is that true or false? Blue is true, red is false. Three, two, one. And the correct answer is false. Only 19 people got that one right. We're just having technical difficulties. Ready? Okay, next question. We still have Nasri in second place, moved to second place. We still have Western Edge in first place, unfortunately. Okay, who lives in Khaibar? The Romans, the Jewish tribes of Medina, the Christian tribes of Medina, or some of the Quraysh tribes? Those are the four options. This is the second last question. I don't know, bro. Oh, it was the Jewish tribes of Medina. 18 people got that one right, mashallah. Oh, Western Edge in first place still. Nasri is no longer in second place. We have Zainab's win part 2 in second place. This is the last question. Multi-select. What can we learn from the Prophet ﷺ when he allowed a 12-year-old girl to stay with the army in the Battle of Khaibar? If you guys don't want Western Edge to win, you have to get this one right. Those are the four options up there on the screen. Five, four, three, two, one. Oh, so the first two were correct. The second two were not correct. All right, let's see the scoreboard now. In third place we have Zaina's win part 2. First place, second, oh. Western Edge in first place. Okay, if you won, you guys can come get your stuff. But engineering don't get their stuff. Okay, Jazakallah khair. We'll see you guys next week, inshallah.